Get ready to embark on a journey of resilience and healing with Building Bulletproof Backs. In this captivating podcast, we explore the inspiring stories of real-life back pain sufferers who have overcome challenges to find a path to wellness. Led by Marion McRae, a seasoned physiotherapist with over 25 years of experience, each episode delves into the transformative power of holistic healing strategies that empower individuals to reclaim their lives from the grips of pain. Join us as we uncover innovative solutions and offer a beacon of hope to all those seeking relief and a brighter future.
Welcome to the next podcast. I have with me now Brian Traskos, who's from the Somatic Coaching Academy. I'm really excited to talk to Brian. I was listening to his and Arnie podcast not too long ago, and I was really excited because Brian has his own experience of back pain, but he's also an incredibly knowledgeable guy who can explain pain science like I've never heard anyone explain it. So he rang a double bell for me and he graciously agreed to come and have the chat. So welcome, Brian. It's so really cool to have you here.
Marion, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to have the conversation and support your listeners and the people you're working with in whatever way that I can, especially dealing with back pain, because I personally know how trying it can be to be having that lived experience.
Yeah. So can you just share with the listeners a little bit about you and then dive into your back pain story?
Yeah, for sure. I'm the co-founder of the Somatic Coaching Academy with my wife and partner, Ani, as you mentioned. I'm the co-creator of the sensation-based motivation coaching method is what we teach at the Academy. But by training like 30 plus years ago, I'm a physical therapist and trained also as a massage therapist and manual practitioner. And so I've been through the whole kind of the exercise PT world, been trained in that. I've been trained in body working, trigger point, myofascial, corrective maneuvers, manipulative processes, all those kinds of things. So manual therapist, exercise therapist. And a lot of that came in my search for, hey, how do I help myself with my own back pain? And also in working with patients over the past 30 plus years as well. I've found a journey of just trying to find whatever I could do to be helpful to people. And that's taken me into a lot of different realms of training, which I've been really grateful for.
And it sounds like now when we go and explore from all those diverse perspectives, we end up centering back on some core themes or some core, everything links, I find, when I go exploring in different sciences and different realms, everything somehow feeds back into this centered path that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, talk to us about your back pain. I believe it started when you were like 14.
Yeah, so I was pretty young at 14 years old, and I still remember the very incident of when I felt back pain for the first time. When I was 14, I was lifting weight as a 14-year-old, and I was lifting pretty heavy, heavier than I probably should have. And in hindsight, I was really like lifting these really heavy weights because it was a coping mechanism that I was using to deal with the pain of losing my grandmother. My paternal grandmother who died when I was 14 years old. And I was very close to her. She was very important to me in my life for so many ways. I could talk about that for days in and of itself, but I felt that loss very deeply. And I felt the way that she passed away. She died of cancer. And back then in the 1980s, the cancer care was it was like Stone Age, really, compared to today. So cancer care was really about chemotherapy, and is the chemotherapy going to kill the cancer or going to kill the patient first was basically how it was at the time. There was no palliative care. So she suffered pretty terribly, and it was heartbreaking for me. Didn't have 14 years old. I didn't really have the capacity, the skills to process what was going on. And so dealing with it afterwards, I was just punishing myself, I think, in a lot of ways, punishing my body in a lot of ways. Maybe in some ways to feel more symbiosis with her, maybe what she experienced, but definitely to dampen my own pain of loss as well. And that really resulted in a pretty major back pain experience I had as a young person.
And can you remember what the process was when you had the back pain? Did you go to therapists? What was that like?
Oh, so when I was 14, no, I basically just hid it. I basically just hid that I was in pain. And that became my that kind of became my pattern, if you will, moving on through my early adult years. And even as a physical therapist, I tell these stories how, you as a physio too, Marion, there's probably some days where you feel like your patients are in better shape than you are. I don't know if you've ever had that kind of experience where you're like in so much pain in the clinic. I'm going into work in so much pain, and I'm thinking to myself, my patient probably right now feels better than I feel in my body.
I
And
I would say maybe not.
hiding that.
Yeah, maybe not. I've certainly experienced that from a emotional place. I've been in a really not a great place emotionally, going in and having to or choosing to mask up to be what that person in front of me needs. And then ironically, at the end of the day, walking out thinking, wow, I feel a lot better than when I started. But yeah, physically, not so much, but certainly from a different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. You understand what that's like. So physically, I would just, like you said, mask up or armor up or grit through. I would really just hide it a lot of the times in my earlier life and try to figure it out myself, sort of thing. So I do a lot of reading, a lot of study, those kinds of things. Sometimes I would go and meet with somebody if I thought that they would be helpful to me. I wouldn't very often seek out help. But again, that's a part of my pattern, a part of my social conditioning, which I think actually led to me having chronic back pain experiences. So when I start thinking about why I had a back pain experience for so long, for 27 years, and the way that I dealt with it, and I can look back and really put together the pieces of the puzzle now in hindsight around like things like social conditioning. Like my part of my social conditioning is basically to lower my expectations or my reporting, like lower my pain reporting, kind of stuff it, basically bury soldier on sort of things, no matter what. And so I did, and never ask for help. You also never has to ask for help.
That's a big one.
Be fiercely independent, have to figure it out myself. So all of those things I think probably led to me having experienced longer than I probably needed to, number one. But what it did come out of that is I was very motivated. I was still very motivated to solve my problem. And so it basically led me into all these other avenues of learning, study. And a lot of those studies brought me into the understanding that healing is not about the physical body alone. And I first really came across that understanding when I was working at Craig Hospital. So Craig Hospital is a pretty well-known neurological rehab hospital in Denver, Colorado. And for anybody who remembers the Columbine shooting that happened in 1999, so all of the kids from that school shooting who had neurological injuries rehabbed at Craig, which is just down the road from Columbine. And one of my patients was a guy by the name of Patrick Ireland, a kid by the name of Patrick Ireland. And he was the boy who jumped out of the window and was on like all the magazines and all those kinds of things. And what I realized when I was working at Craig and working with people like Pat is that we weren't really that good at predicting who would recover from traumatic brain injuries and who wouldn't. And you'd think that with all the science and like the scans and all those kind of the best doctors in the world, that we'd have a good idea of, oh, so here's the physical problem, here's the physical issue, the person's going to have this exact function or this, but it wouldn't work out that way. And I really realized that some people healed from really traumatic injuries much better than other people who had less traumatic. And by the way, any neurological injury is a traumatic injury, by the way. So I don't want to kind of grade it that way. But if you look at it objectively on scans, some people just should do better than other people just looking at scans. And it didn't always work out that way. And I realized that some people healed when they weren't supposed to, and other people didn't heal when they were supposed to. And it got me very interested in why that was. Please.
As it should. It really should get you very interested, because in that inquiry are all the answers to what we're missing with our current model. These are the clues that aren't they are now. They're being explored a lot now. And I think every physio, every manual therapist, every chiro, osteo has had that experience of looking at someone's objective data and it doesn't match up with what they're seeing in front of them clinically. And yeah, on both directions. People with horrific scan results who are smiling and happy and seem to not have a care in the world, and people with relatively minor changes having the most intense experience of what's going on. So yeah, that gap is where there's true power. So keep going. I really think that's a key point.
Yeah, thanks for that reflection, Marion. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, and more, especially physical therapists and physical rehabilitation professionals are having this conversation, because just in our training, we can be biased towards the physical dimension of someone's life experience. And I like to say we're always living on three planes of existence simultaneously. Like right now, like we're living on a physical plane, right? Because you can look at your body, you can touch it, you can feel it, right? There's a physical aspect to us. But we're also living on a mental emotional plane also. So I have thoughts and emotions. You have thoughts and emotions. We all do. And we're also living on a spiritual plane. And so we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. So if you don't want to call it spiritual, if you have someone who's like, I'm not sure, it's a relational plane. Let's talk about living on a relational plane. So we all are part of something bigger than ourselves. We're all part of larger groups or communities, or we're all part of a larger cosmos in some way. So we're all living on those three planes. And as physical medicine professionals, as physical therapists, we get so dialed into, I've got to just pay attention to the physical body. And I think that's why we come up really short oftentimes as physios, in really making a big difference for people who have pain, especially chronic pain, because chronic pain is never solely physical, ever. It's always what we call biopsychosocial. We know that chronic pain always has those three components. There's a biological component happening, which means there's something going on in the body for sure. But there's also definitely a psychological component. So we could call that the mental, emotional component. And then there's always a social component. There's always a relational component going on with that. And that's getting more and more established in care, which is really great. It's getting more and more established in the research, I should say, which is really great. I think where the slowdown right now is dissemination of that knowledge into practice to really help and empower physical medicine professionals to be able to use all three aspects of those components to really help people heal. But I think you're right. The inquiry comes when we're like, something isn't lining up here. Something doesn't make sense. And at that time, I was really drawn to that and really inspired to really try to understand that. And that got me into that really deep study of body, mind, medicine at that time. And that's really what I've been just so inspired about for the last really, at this point, 25, 26, 27 years.
Yeah. And can you speak to that moment where you realized, I heard you speak about the frustration link and the scenario where your back gave out. And it was that kind of aha moment that, man, every time I'm frustrated, this is what happens following. Can you just have a little bit of a speak to that key moment where you realized that potentially emotionally there was a trigger for your back pain?
Yeah, I wish I could say that it happened sooner than later, but it was really years of episodes happening to me that finally crept into my awareness. And it was like this slow creep. I would notice that I would end up with a back episode where I'd get like a knife stabbing in my back or lightning bolt or something, and I would feel frustrated. But oftentimes I would equate the frustration to happening because I hurt my back. I thought that the back episode happened first and the frustration happened second. For a long time, I was like, of course I'm frustrated. I can't get off the floor. I'm stuck on the couch. I want to do all these things. And it took a couple of years or a couple of just being aware of that until that one day I was walking. I remember it clear. I was walking in my driveway and there was a piece of paper or something in the driveway. And I was just about to go pick it up. And on the way down to pick it up, I noticed how frustrated I was that I was the one who had to pick up the piece of paper, even though I wasn't the only one living in the house. It's like, why is no one else picking up the piece of paper in the yard? Who left it here? All that internal talk. And I could feel that frustration building as I went to pick it up. And then when I got that lightning bolt in my back and ended up on the ground in the driveway, I was like, I think there's maybe something here with that frustration. Of course, I had to heal. And then it was another episode later where I was doing this work party with some friends and got frustrated again, lifting a piece of a barn off of the ground. And that's when I was like, sure, that's what the problem was. So it happened, but then I needed it to happen again to validate that that's exactly what it was. Because now I was almost like looking for it, but it happened again so quickly that I wasn't able to stop it at that point. So then going forward from there, I was really starting to pay attention that when I got frustrated, I would pause and slow down, take some deep breaths, especially if that frustration also was occurring at the time where I was doing heavy physical activity, picking things up. So it took me a little while to get to that point. But once I got to that point and I validated it, I was like, oh my God, there really is something there. And so I didn't know the deeper reasons for that at that point, but I did know that there was definitely an emotional connection with the physical pain that I was experiencing for sure.
And don't you love that it sounds like that was an opportunity? Your body was offering you this little feedback mechanism. When I'm frustrated, this is what my body does, almost as an invitation for you to pause and, like you say, deep breathe and become curious about that particular feedback cycle going on within you, ultimately so that you could release it, feel it, make peace with it, whatever needed to happen, move it through you so that you could create space for bigger and better things. And it was an opportunity to deepen that internal relationship with yourself. And I often see back pain as that. It's feedback that something needs to be looked at. And it might be the belief, it might be the thinking, it might be the feeling. They're probably all linked. You'd know better than I. It might be a movement pattern that could be up-leveled. I think that reframe of pain as nothing wrong. Pain is an invitation to know thyself on a deeper level is a really lovely starting place for someone in pain.
I 100% agree, Marion. I love that. I love that philosophy. And I love the way that you're looking at it like that, because that is the truth. That's the next level truth. And as we go through kind of levels of awareness, as people experience chronic pain in our lives, it's like that first level is that, hey, I'm in pain. Something is happening to me. That's typically the first level. Like my body is doing something to me. I lived like that for a long time. And then I had to get past that point and say, okay, so if that's true, what is my body doing and why is it doing it? I had to have a greater level of curiosity about it. Eventually getting to the point where saying, there's really an opportunity here. My body is trying to tell me something. I don't know what it's trying to tell me, but I know it's trying to tell me something. And so as we go through these levels of awareness, it's really important to mark them and go, okay, I'm at another level of awareness now. I'm no longer a victim to my body. Now I'm in communication with my body now. I'm trying to understand what's going. It's a whole different level of relationship with yourself.
100%. And that's where the power starts, because if you really trust that it's giving you everything you need for your own growth and development, and you make peace with it and you love it back into it, it's that relational, internal being externally visualized through our physicality, that I just think there's a lot of true power in that.
Yeah.
You were a physio. You clearly could see that standard physio approaches weren't working for you, which is quite... I've had that moment as a physio just going, this really doesn't work. This is not working. I think I'm okay as a physio and people just aren't getting better. There's more to it. I think that's a big moment as a therapist where you realize that the model we've been taught has a lot of missing pieces, and then you have a choice as a therapist to go and plug them up with whatever reference works for you. But you're a physio at this point and you're having recurrent back episodes with all the knowledge that you have. You're meant to be able to fix it if you're a physio. Where did you come to on that journey of your relationship or your understanding of your own profession that you'd chosen to study by that point?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hope it's okay to interrupt my own podcast. Do you resonate with our conversations about holistic back pain solutions? If so, I've got something special for you. My book, From Broken to Bulletproof, is the ideal first step for anyone looking to dive deeper into the Bulletproof Backs method. Inside, you'll find powerful strategies and insights that blend mental, emotional, and movement techniques to help you tackle back pain at its root. It's a quick read. Head over to www.bulletproofbacks.com to download your copy today. If you vibe with the book, you'll love working with our physio coaches and the online courses.
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat, Marion. I got to a place where I was like, so this isn't working. And it was really important to me so integrity is just really important to me. So a couple of things are happening. I fell out of integrity that I couldn't even help myself, and other people were coming to me for help. And so I knew that if I couldn't help myself to some level, I was going to give limited help to them. And it was really important that I was able to help other people. So for me, when I got to that point, I started to investigate really more Eastern philosophies, more Eastern medicine philosophies, because I realized that they really look more holistically at the body, right? The Western world, we really look at the body as like a machine. And in the Eastern world, the body is more looked at like a garden, that there's symbiosis that happens in a garden that doesn't happen in a machine. In a machine, you could take a part out and replace a part and off you go. But in a garden, if you take out I don't know much about gardening. If you have aphids on tomato plants, if you have certain plants in the garden with the tomatoes, then those will actually attract the aphids off the tomatoes and potentially kill the aphid. There's all these symbioses that happen in a really healthy garden. And the Eastern medicine looks at the body like a garden. It looks at it much more kind of holistically. And so I wanted to understand it that way because I thought it could be helpful for me, for myself, and helping other people. So I really started getting into things like mindfulness and meditation practices, somatic practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, movement practices that had breath and movement together, as well as, again, meditation practice, self-massage practices, those sorts of things, using acupressure, all that kind of stuff to really start having a different relationship with my energy body, or even the way that my physical body used energy within itself. Mm-hmm. And when I started making those changes, something in my mindset kind of shifted. I was able to have a more, what we call the non-judgmental witnessing aspect of myself. It no longer was my pain, but I was able to observe what was going on in my situation rather than it becoming me. And so a lot of the Eastern practices, that's what we focus on, is having some level of separation between my experience and who I really am. And creating that space was hugely beneficial. And so that's one of the things I initially started doing with all of my patients. With that, I got trained in a bunch of Eastern medicine kind of philosophies, working those things into my physical therapy, Western medicine treatments. And so it just helped me launch pad a little bit more into holistic practice that was hugely beneficial for people and for myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. So where are you at with your back now?
I have, as far as the frustration related back pain, that is gone. I have not experienced any. I resolved that in 2013. Yep. So between ages 14 and 41, so 27 years in there, I had, again, those episodic back pain issues. And that's been gone since 2013. I have not had in the last, this is 2025 now. So what's that, 12 years? I've not experienced in 12 years a single episode of frustration related back pain. Now, I've strained my back playing pickleball with my teenage son and skiing. I've actively related back strain that gets better because it heals. I stretch and that kind of stuff. But as far as the chronic episodic stuff, totally resolved. Absolutely, totally resolved.
Yeah, that's great. And so if you were looking to pass on your top 3 tips to someone who's still in it, what would you pass on?
Yeah. So my first one, thank you for asking, Marion. That's great. So here are my 3 tips. My first one is a pain experience. It can be very difficult to live with it, like an unrelenting sensory experience. So we have it, and I don't even call it pain anymore, by the way. In my practice, when I work with people, we use all sensory-based language around stuff because we know that pain is actually not input, pain is output. There's no sensors that bring pain into the nervous system. We generate pain internally and we output it. I talk about it initially just to start the ball rolling with people. So I always talk about things in sensory experiences. So this first step, I'm going to use that. And that's why I'm just letting you know. That's why I'm saying it. So an unrelenting sensory experience can just be so draining sometimes when it just is ongoing. And it just takes so much of our attention, especially when it's an unpleasant sensory experience. And what I suggest to people is focus on what you can do. Focus on what you can do, because you can do things simultaneously also experiencing unpleasant sensory experience. You can still do things at the same time. And the things that I would suggest you focus on are things like these, what we call core centering or somatic practices, self-massage practices, breathing practices, gentle movement practice, and really focusing on more positive or more pleasant or more healthier sensory experiences also to have going in your body. As humans, we have thousands, if not millions, of sensory experiences available to us at any moment. But when we experience one that overshadows all the other one, we become very hyper vigilant of it, and we forget that there's all these other things going on in our nervous system. So I say focus on the healthy sensations in your nervous system as much as you possibly can to empower yourself. That would be the very first tip that I would give people.
Yeah, great. Number 2.
The second one I would say is don't stop living. Don't stop living. Have something important in your life that motivates you to keep moving forward, Even if that thing in your life you're motivated is to feel differently in your body. But I have to admit, for some periods of time in my life, that was the most motivating thing I had in my life was I want to feel differently. At the time, I might have said, I want to solve this back pain issue. And that was okay because that drove me to continue learning and practicing and going deeper and trying different things and transcending the idea that it was a physical issue, which allowed me to surrender into experiencing the mental emotional level and the relational levels that you have to heal on completely. So have something in your life, and it might be an internal motivator that you have. It might be something like your family or even your work or even whatever it is, but have something in your life that keeps you moving forward and don't stop living.
Yeah. And that's a key one, because if the body doesn't have anything to generate energy for, it tends to not bother. So
Right.
that drive or that thing that lights you up is a really big part of having the body engage with generating energy to move forward. So I really like that one. And number 3.
Yeah. So for number 3, for me, it's always, hey, get a well-trained somatic coach to work with a physio or a somatic professional that understands how to support you on a biopsychosocial level. You have to have someone that's not only really versed in how to help you move in more healthy ways and work on that bio level, enhancing flexibility and strength and all those sorts of things, but also someone who's able to help you really reveal and release some of the core limiting beliefs that are knocking around inside of your subconscious, because ultimately those beliefs, social conditioning that we have in our life is connected to our pain experience. It's oftentimes the root of our pain experience. And if we can't get in there and disconnect some of that stuff and unravel it and understand it and release it, we're always going to be cycling back into that physiological experience again. Because that's what pain really is. At the physiological level, there's something driving that physiological looping. And it's not just a physical thing. It's always also a mental, emotional, social thing. Unless you're working with someone or a team of someone to help you do that, you're always going to be recycling.
And it takes courage to do that. We all know that. It really takes courage to go to that level of depth of feeling. People are very frightened to feel, I think, sometimes. They've been encouraged not to, or if we're not in touch with those things bubbling up, it can be overwhelming. It can be very frightening. But like you say, if you find a somatic therapist who can actually give you the tools to feel safe in feeling, I think that's a very liberating space, and so much opens on the other side of that door opening. So they're great tips. We've got 4 minutes left, Brian. And when I say the word bulletproof back, what comes up for you?
So for me, I think the ideas of flexible and strong are definitely things, but even more importantly than that, Marion, I think for me, it's to feel confident, free, and fully expressed in my movement.
Love
So
that.
when I think about my spine, I need to be fully expressed. like fearless in terms of picking up a piece of paper off my driveway and not even a wink of worry about it, or going for a run or a hike or whatever it is, to feel fully expressed in my body, I think is how I would think about being having bulletproof back. Yeah.
I love that you didn't say it's about six-pack abs and strong glutes and I have an internal rising of gritting my teeth when, just because the messaging, I really feel that constant messaging about strength just keeps so many people trapped and locked in cycles they don't need to be. So thank you for not mentioning that.
Oh, for sure. There's a beautiful saying in Tai Chi practice to become what they say, steel wrapped in cotton, wrapped in cotton, which means that you have a strong core. You have a strong core, but externally you're very fluid and graceful and adaptable and free and floating, but you always have a very strong core. And I have always, since I've heard that idea, been attracted to that. And that's my way to think about that, is having a fully expressed body that's fearless in how it moves.
Yeah. And look, Brian, I love how you speak. I could talk to you for hours. If people want to know more or listen to more about what you and Ani teach and deliver, where can they find you?
Super easy. Find us at the Somatic Coaching Academy.com. And you can look at like our Somatic Coach Complete Training Program, if that's what you're interested in. We have some on-demand tools, and we have our podcast also. We're happy to have people join in and listen. That's a totally free cast that they can listen to as well, to just soak up all the information that we share there.
Yeah, and it's quality information. And there's a huge missing piece with practitioners who, our training is very body-centric, and I think most of them are realizing now they need some skills in some other areas to become truly holistic. But where do they go for those skills? There is a missing part. Yeah, I highly recommend these guys. I think you guys are onto it. I think you have practical tools, you have the science, and I just think you're filling a really important gap in training, which is well needed. So thank you to both of you for offering that. And thanks for your time today, Brian. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Marion, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. And I hope that this was valuable for all your listeners to help them have a bulletproof back.
Yeah, I know it will be. See you, Brian.
Thanks so much.
As we wrap up another empowering episode of Building Bulletproof Backs, remember that your journey to healing is within reach. For more invaluable resources and guidance, visit www.bulletproofbacks.com. Dive deeper into Marion's transformative approach to banishing back pain by exploring her book, From Broken to Bulletproof: Unconventional Ways to Banish Back Pain. Discover the Bulletproof Back System, a holistic framework that integrates mindset, emotional fitness, and quality movement re-education to heal stubborn pain. Whether you're seeking online courses, coaching, or consulting, Marion has you covered on your path to a pain-free life. Until next time, stay resilient and keep moving forward.